Good morning, I am Kelvin, and today I will presenting my research proposal with title The Effectiveness of Multimedia Teaching on Year 3 Pupils' Achievement in Density. First, we will see the background of this study. The science education plays an important role in developing pupils' scientific knowledge, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills, which are essential for the daily life. At the primary levels, the pupils are introduced to basic concepts such as density, which explains the relationship between the mass and volume. And this helps them to understand why the object float or sink. However, for the year 3 pupils, density is often abstract and difficult because they have common misconceptions such as thinking that heavier objects always sink. These incorrect ideas will affect their understanding and academic performance. In addition, traditional teaching methods are often teacher-centered and rely mainly on the teacher explanation, which do not help pupils visualize the abstract concept. Whereas multimedia teaching, which uses video, animation, images, and audio, can present concepts in a more engaging and interactive way, which helping pupils to understand this abstract concept. So, multimedia teaching has the potential to make learning more clear, engaging, and more meaningful, especially for this abstract concept, which is density. Okay, despite the importance of the topic, many pupils still struggle to understand density. This is because the concept is abstract. It involves multiple ideas such as mass, volume, and buoyancy. And the traditional teaching method just focus mainly on the explanation and provide limited visual support only. So, the pupils often develop supervisor understanding and the low achievement. Although multimedia teaching has the potential, but there is still limited research focusing on the primary school pupils, which is particular in the Malaysian context. Therefore, this creates a research gap, which is more studies are needed to confirm whether multimedia teaching is effective for the young learners. And next, we will see the research purpose. The research purpose of this study is to examine the effectiveness of the multimedia teaching on the year 3 pupils' achievement in density. And the research objective consists of three objectives. The first is to determine the level of the pupils' achievement in density before the implementation of the multimedia teaching. Second one is to examine the effect of the multimedia teaching on pupils' achievement in density. And the third one is to compare the difference between the pupils taught using the multimedia teaching and the pupils taught using the conventional method. Based on this objective, this study addresses the following research question. What is the level of the pupil achievement in density before the intervention? And does multimedia teaching improve the pupil's achievement in density? And whether is there a significant difference in achievement between the multimedia teaching and the conventional teaching? These questions are conducted to ensure that the study is clear, focused, and measurable, and this directly linked to the objective. To answer this question, two hypotheses are formulated. The new hypothesis is there is not significant difference in pupils' achievement between the multimedia teaching and the conventional teaching. While the alternative hypothesis is there is a significant difference in the pupils' achievement between the multimedia teaching and the conventional methods. And this hypothesis allows the researcher to statistically test the effectiveness of the multimedia teaching. Next, we'll move to the conceptual framework. The conceptual framework shows that the pupils initially have misconceptions about density. Through multimedia teaching, the concepts are presented clearly using the visual and the audio elements, so the pupil can actively construct their new knowledge. So, in the process, the misconceptions are gradually corrected. As a result, people develop a more accurate understanding, which leads to improved achievement. So, multimedia teaching acts as a bridge that helps people move from the misunderstanding to correct scientific understanding. Next, we'll move to the scope and limitation. And this study focuses on the year 3 pupils, which is in Thailand, Sabah, and the topic is about the density. However, there are some limitations, including the small sample size, short duration of study, external factors such as the pupil prior knowledge and the learning environment. Therefore, the findings may not be generalized to all schools. And this study is important because it helps teachers to improve their teaching strategies and makes the abstract concept easier for pupils to understand and support the student-centered learning and provides useful reference for the future research. And next, we will move to the chapter 2, the literature review. And first is the multimedia teaching. And the multimedia teaching refers to the integration of text, images, video, and animation in the teaching process. It allows information to be presented in the multiple formats, making the learning more interactive and engaging. For example, animation can demonstrate the floating and sinking behavior of the object, while the videos can show the real-life application of the floating and sinking. On the other hand, density is a concept that explains the relationship between the mass and volume, and this is difficult for the pupils because it cannot be seen directly and involve the reasoning. So many pupils will misunderstand density by associating it only with the size or weight. Therefore, effective teaching strategies for multimedia are needed to clarify concepts and correct their misconception. Next, we'll look into the research theory, and my study is supported by two main theories, which is the first one is the cognitive theory of the multimedia learning, which explains that pupils learn better when the information is presented through the both visual and auditory channels. And it also helps reduce the cognitive overload and improve retention. Second one is the Piaget's constructivist theory, which emphasizes that pupils are active learners who construct knowledge and based on their experiences. So these both theories strongly support the use of multimedia teaching in improving their understanding about the concept. And next, we'll look into the previous finding of the research. Previous study has shown that multimedia teaching increases the pupil motivation and interest, and this is the result according to the Sun and et al. In the year 2025. So, this interactive animation can build a conceptual understanding of the abstract physics, which is according to the Quali and Roma in year 2025. And next is the previous finding have found that students had difficulties with density. According to Ahmad and Kaya in year 2023, pupils rely heavily on the supervisor features like the size and weight. And according to the Gura Reyes et al. In the year 2024, misconceptions are persistent, deeply rooted, and resistant to verbal-only instruction. So, this highlights the importance of using more effective and interactive teaching approaches. And next, we will look into the chapter 3 methodology about this research. First is the research design. This study adopts a quantitative, precise experimental design, and the two groups are involved, which is the experimental group, which is taught using the multimedia teaching method, while control group is taught using the conventional method. This allows for me to make a comparison between the two teaching strategies. And next, we will go to the research procedure. The first step is the pilot study for the reliability check. This pilot test will be conducted before the actual study and to check the reliability of the achievement test using the Chromebox Alpha. And this is to identify the unclear or difficult question to improve the research instrument. Next is the pre-test to measure the initial understanding, and this will be administered to both experimental and control groups. And this will be conducted before the teaching intervention to determine whether the pupils' baseline knowledge and ensure that both groups start at a similar track. The next phase is intervention phase, which is the experimental group will be taught using the multimedia teaching such as videos, animation, and other visuals objects. And the control group will be taught using conventional methods such as using the textbook and also the verbal explanation. And this intervention phase is conducted to compare the effectiveness of the both teaching strategies. And next, we will go to the post-test to measure the improvement of the pupils. And this will be administered after the intervention. And it will use the same format as the pre-test to evaluate whether pupils' understanding and measure improvement of their achievement. So this can ensure a systematic and reliable data collection. And next we will go to the sampling, and this study using purposive sampling to select year 3 pupils who are suitable for the research objective. And the participants are divided into two groups, which is experimental group and also the control group. And next we will go to the research instrument. And the research instrument is aligned with the BSKP Science Year 3 Chapter 7 Density from the Learning Standard 7.1.1 to the 7.1.4. And the main instrument is achievement test, which includes 4 objective questions, which consists of 4 marks, and 4 structured questions, which consists of 16 marks. And the instrument is divided into 2 sections, which is section A is the multiple choice question, and section B is the structured question. And this instrument is validated by the expert, which is the lecturer, and this will be tested for reliability using the Chromebox Alpha. And next we will go to the intervention procedure. In the intervention phase, the experimental group will be taught using the materials such as the digital videos, animations, and audio, while the control group will be taught using the traditional method such as the textbook explanation and the teacher-centered instruction. So this allows the direct comparison of the effectiveness of the multimedia teaching. And next is the crucial control. The same teacher will be used. The same teacher for both groups are strictly isolate the multimedia variable. So next we will go to the data analysis. The data will be analyzed using descriptive statistics, which is a mean and standard deviation to describe the overall performance of the pupils, and to summarize and compare the pre-test and post-test results. And last is to allow the general trend in the pupils' achievement. Not only that, inferential statistics will also be conducted, which is the pair t-test and independent t-test will be used. Pair t-test will be used to compare the pre-test and post-test results within the same group, while the independent t-test will be used to compare the achievement between the experimental and the control group. So this can determine whether the differences are statistically significant. If the result is significant, it will indicate that multimedia teaching is effective in improving pupils' achievement in this topic density. And in conclusion, this study aims to examine whether the multimedia teaching can improve pupils' understanding and achievement in density. It addresses an important research gap and uses a systematic methodology to produce the reliable findings. The findings are expected to contribute to better teaching practices and improve learning outcomes. That's all from me. Thank you.